Hey friends, here we are, Chris and Jason, back together at last.
Yes.
I really enjoyed the last 2 weeks, not seeing myself.
Oh, really? Yeah.
I know you did a solo one.
Yeah, it was lonely.
And
really
then Jer
lonely.
was in last week.
I love that.
And can I just say one thing I loved about Jer? Well, first of all, it was great hearing Jer preach.
Yes.
And to hear him reflect on it. And I love the discussion that followed. But Jer's confidence in the way he sat in the chair, like you and I are both sort of, we're in the chair, but we're like, but he so comfortable in his own skin.
Yeah.
Do you know what I'm saying? Like leaning
in his
right
own-
back.
Yeah, very casual, comfortable in his own skin, comfortable with the content.
Yep.
It really worked for him.
It was a great vibe.
It
But it's good to be
was.
back with you, I guess
It
is
is,
what I'm
of
saying.
course, of course. We also have our own thing going. That's
great.
strong. Yeah.
We are in the middle of a new series called Only Jesus. Can you give us a bit of the, why are we doing this series right now?
Well, I think we wanted to talk about why Jesus is at the center of everything we're doing as a church, that Jesus is the foundation of all we're building. And the idea was to look at some really bold, audacious claims about Jesus that are almost like controversial and confrontational in our culture.
Totally. When you say that, I just think it's really important that even as you discuss this week and the following weeks, to pause long enough on the claim and to pause long enough on it to see how bold the claim is. Because you could say something, and maybe it's just because of how around church I've been, like in a couple weeks we're doing Only Jesus Can Bring Full Life.
Right.
And that statement sounds like, oh yeah, that's a nice statement, Jesus brings full life. But when you say only Jesus can bring full life, that is like an indictment on every other thing.
Yes.
Ability to bring about full life.
Right, so hence the confrontational nature. Right?
Yes.
We're doing next week, only Jesus can forgive all sins.
Which means there is no other way to experience forgiveness of sins.
And then week one
Yes.
was only Jesus can conquer the grave. And so we looked at this narrative in the Gospel of John chapter 20. The basic idea is this. The disciples have been with Jesus. Jesus dies. I'm skipping over parts, obviously.
The important parts, but
Very important parts.
we need to be brief.
Yeah, exactly. So Jesus dies, the disciples are discouraged, they're disillusioned, they run away, they're scared, they're fearful, but then Jesus appears to them. And Thomas, one of the 12, isn't there for that resurrection appearance. And so the disciples tell him, they're like, we've seen Jesus. And Thomas has this classic moment. It's why he's got the name Doubting Thomas. And he says, unless I touch his wounds and see him, I won't believe. And then something beautiful happens in verse 26 of the story you just read.
This was one of the favorite insights that you brought for me, and I've never noticed this insight before. So this was fresh for me hearing this talk.
Great. And so basically, it's really actually quite simple. It says, a week later, the disciples are gathered, and Thomas is in the room with them. So Thomas goes, I'm not going to believe.
Right.
But a week later, he's still there, which means Thomas stayed in the room.
Right.
He stayed curious. He stayed open-hearted. And it's a word for all of us, because we all experience this, but for all of us who have doubts, this encouragement to stay in the room, to not disengage, and to create space in our small groups and as a church culture for people with legitimate questions and doubts to ask them and not be afraid of being dismissed or marginalized in the midst of it. And when I think of this theme of doubt, even I've known you for a long time, but I love to just hear you speak to how you've experienced doubt or dealt with it on your journey.
Yeah, I think I always imagined there would be a day in my walk with Jesus where I would have no doubt.
Right.
But I think I experience it all the time. I think what's really helpful for me is to remember that, or to not allow shame to build out when I experience doubt, not to beat myself up for it, and to know that I have friends and a place in my own heart and relationships and small group, different places where I can talk about these things.
Right.
But then also not to give doubt more power than it needs. Because let me just give a really trite example. There are times where, even in the context of my marriage, I could doubt that Rachel loves me as much as she said she does. That's a real doubt. We all have insecurities, right? Doubt comes from all sorts of different sources. But it's not helpful for me to go, I'm going to live out of that moment of doubt's reality.
Right.
Like, we shouldn't exchange everything I've experienced up until this point in exchange for this feeling of doubt, because that's being really led by our feelings. And so I think what I do is I practice exercises of reason and thoughtfulness and not being reactive. I go, oh no, okay, well, I know Rachel loves me. And I know, look, we've been together. She's been committed to me. And there's a conversation that can follow. And with my walk with God, it's not unusual to have doubts. But I don't want to live out of those doubts in that instant way. But I also want to be afraid of them. I can discuss them and explore them. So one of the things for sure to explore tonight is this question of doubt. But then please take time to also discuss the major claim of the sermon, which is only Jesus can overcome death.
Right. And so sometimes I like to say that doubt's not meant to be a destination, but it can be an invitation from the Holy Spirit to us to explore our faith in a deeper way than ever before, and to even explore this claim that only Jesus can conquer the grave, because it really is the central claim of Christianity. 1 Corinthians 15 says, apart from the resurrection, our faith is futile. And so
you guys might be hearing some noise in the background. There's a car alarm that just went off.
Right.
Don't be alarmed. See
Don't
the pun
be
I did there?
Yes.
It wasn't on purpose.
Everything is, it just
happened on accidentally.
Did a pun.
Pun. What were you saying?
I was saying something significant
Significant
about the
about
resurrection being the central claim of Christianity.
And this, for whether you're a follower of Jesus or not, I know that there's all kinds of people find themselves in this small group. This is the central claim of Christianity and is worthy of reflection. That Jesus, that ultimately Christianity isn't hinged on emotions or suggestion.
Right.
It's hinged on a factual, historical event. Mm-hmm. That's a bold claim.
Yeah. And if it happened, it changes everything. I mean, it means God is real. It means God's revealed himself in Jesus. It means there's life after death. It speaks to our identity and our significance and who we are and how we're to view the world and live out our faith. It speaks to all of these things. And so we want to throw to discussion right now. The discussion leaders have questions, and we just invite you to explore all of these themes.
Can I just say one thing before we finish?
Of course.
Chris wrote a great little booklet called Radical Hope.
Wow.
Booklet. It's like somewhere between a booklet and a book.
Yes.
It's a very manageable sized book that is a defense of the resurrection. Mm-hmm. And why Christians believe in the resurrection historically as an event. And we can make that available.
I have it on PDF. If you email me, I'll give it to you for free, of course.
Chris at thewaychurch.ca.
Chris at thewaychurch. It's my name, and then an @ and then the name of the church.
And so I really recommend that. If you've got questions and you guys find yourself wrestling, that's a great resource for you. We love you all. See you soon.